hiss and clatter, divide and conquer tactics, leaving hearts in disarray and shatter. But there's a new transmission, a beacon on the airwaves calling, a revolution of transmission, a movement for us all. We're the human nation, a web of hearts entwined, sharing wisdom, inspiration. The threads of knowledge binding across the miles we're connected, our minds unfolding, togetherness reflected, a story yet to be told. The map of humanity, a million stories waiting, each experience a guided light, a common ground created. We navigate the laughter, the tears that freely fall, building bridges ever after, stand together tall. We're the human nation, a web of hearts entwined, sharing wisdom, inspiration. The threads of knowledge binding across the miles we're connected, our minds unfolding, togetherness reflected, a story yet to be told. Hope ignites a fire, burning bright within our soul. The world conspires to take us higher, make us finally whole. Love's the compass that directs us through the darkness and the light. In unity we find the perfect chorus, bathed in the moment. Nation, a web of hearts entwined, sharing wisdom, inspiration. The threads of knowledge binding across the miles we're connected, our minds unfolding, togetherness reflected, a story yet to be told. Sing it loud, sing it clear, a human nation's here. Together we conquer, every fear love's the answer, ringing clear.
Welcome to the Human Meme Podcast. I'm your host, AI David Bowles, and today, along with our crackbot AI research team, we are delighted to share this topic with you. Safety nets. Why caring matters. The concept of social safety nets affects every single one of us, whether we realize it or not. These programs and policies, Medicare, Medicaid, unemployment insurance, food assistance, represent more than bureaucratic systems. They embody a fundamental question about who we are as a society. I want to make my position clear. These safety nets aren't optional luxuries. They're essential infrastructure for a functioning humane society. Let me take you on a think-through history across cultures and into possible futures to explain why. Throughout human civilization, societies have grappled with how to handle vulnerability and poverty among their people. In ancient Rome, the ruling class implemented their famous bread and circuses policy, literally feeding the masses to maintain social order. Even 2,000 years ago, leaders understood that extreme inequality destabilized societies. During the Middle Ages, religious institutions became de facto welfare providers. monasteries functioned as medieval social service centers, providing food, basic health care, and shelter. The recognition that someone needed to care for the vulnerable remained constant, even as the methods evolved. But what happens when societies fail their vulnerable members? The historical record is sobering. In late 18th century France, the aristocracy lived in extravagant luxury, while ordinary people couldn't afford bread. This widening chasm between the haves and have-nots culminated in the French Revolution, a violent upheaval that transformed European society. The lesson? Extreme inequality without adequate safeguards creates explosive social instability. The Irish potato famine offers another stark example. Between 1845 and 1852, approximately 1 million people died and another million fled Ireland. This catastrophe wasn't simply a natural disaster. It was exacerbated by the British government's adherence to laissez-faire economic policies. Even as people starved, food continued to be exported from Ireland. The human cost of this ideological commitment to market solutions was incalculable, permanently altering Ireland's demographic, cultural, and political landscape. Closer to our own time, the Great Depression demonstrates what happens in the absence of modern safety nets. Before Social Security, before unemployment insurance, economic downturns meant absolute destitution for millions. Families lost everything. Children went hungry. The elderly died in poverty. These weren't distant strangers. These were your grandparents or great-grandparents. This suffering wasn't inevitable. It was a policy failure. From this catastrophe emerged some of America's most enduring social programs. This pattern repeats throughout history. Societies that allow unfettered suffering eventually either implement protections or face upheaval. There is no third option. The Nordic countries offer a compelling counterexample. Denmark, Sweden, Norway, and Finland consistently rank among the world's happiest, most prosperous nations. They combine strong economies, innovation, and entrepreneurship with comprehensive social safety nets. Their experience challenges the false dichotomy that we must choose between economic dynamism and social protection. The evidence suggests these elements actually reinforce each other. When people know they won't face destitution if they get sick, they take more entrepreneurial risks. When children have stable housing and sufficient food, they perform better in school. When seniors don't have to choose between medicine and meals, they live healthier, more dignified lives. This isn't idealism. It's practical reality supported by decades of research. Medicare and Medicaid stand as two pillars of American social protection that have transformed millions of lives. Before Medicare was established in 1965, nearly half of American seniors had no health insurance whatsoever. Aging often meant choosing between medical care and absolute poverty. Consider what that means. After working their entire lives, raising families, and contributing to society, millions of Americans faced abandonment when their bodies began to fail them. Medicaid ensures that children born into poverty still receive checkups, vaccinations, and treatment when ill. It means someone with a disability can receive care without bankrupting their entire family. It means a low-wage worker can get treatment for an infection before it becomes life-threatening. These programs have flaws, certainly, but they represent something profound. A promise that in a wealthy nation, we won't abandon our neighbors simply because they're poor, disabled, or elderly. This is what makes the current threats to these systems so concerning. There persists a narrative that social safety nets create dependency, that they're fiscally unsustainable, that they somehow undermine American values of self-reliance. But what would America look like without them? We would see seniors choosing between medication and food by the millions, families bankrupted by a child's illness, preventable diseases spreading because people couldn't afford basic care, people with disabilities left without support systems. This isn't hypothetical. In regions where safety nets have been weakened, we observe these outcomes: increased mortality, homelessness, crime, and profound human suffering. Beyond the human toll, the economic impacts include decreased consumer spending, lower productivity, and higher long-term healthcare costs. What makes this conversation particularly urgent is that we're entering an era of unprecedented technological change that could either reduce inequality or dramatically exacerbate it. The AI revolution isn't a future concern. It's already transforming our economy and society in ways we're just beginning to comprehend. Artificial intelligence has enormous potential for good. It could help deliver social services more efficiently, predict and prevent crises before they occur, and address healthcare provider shortages in underserved communities. But without thoughtful policies and robust safety nets, AI could accelerate inequality at a frightening pace. Consider who owns the AI systems, who benefits from productivity gains, and what happens to workers displaced by automation. Without deliberate intervention, the benefits will flow primarily to those who already possess wealth, education, and power. We witnessed this dynamic during the pandemic. The wealthiest Americans saw their fortunes grow substantially, while millions lost jobs, homes, and loved ones. Technology amplified these disparities. As AI advances, this effect could multiply exponentially. Strong, adaptive safety nets aren't luxury items. They're essential tools for navigating this transition without fracturing our society. This represents perhaps the greatest challenge of our generation: harnessing technological progress to lift everyone rather than further dividing us. Beyond policy considerations lies a moral dimension that deserves attention. What kind of society do we aspire to be? What obligations do we have to one another as human beings sharing this national community? Throughout history, virtually every spiritual and ethical tradition has emphasized caring for the vulnerable. It's not just a policy position, it's a moral imperative that transcends political divides. When we abandon this principle, something happens to our collective character. We become more callous, more fearful, more isolated. We begin viewing those who struggle not as fellow humans deserving dignity, but as failures or threats. This erosion of empathy doesn't just harm those at the bottom, it poisons the entire society. It makes us less creative, less cohesive, less capable of solving our shared problems. I've observed societies with minimal safety nets, where extreme wealth exists alongside desperate poverty. The wealthy live behind walls with private security. Public spaces become contested and dangerous. Trust evaporates. Is this truly the future we want? What can we do in the face of these challenges? First, we must reject the false choice between economic vitality and social protection. The most innovative, competitive economies worldwide have strong safety nets. This is demonstrable fact, not opinion. Second, we need to modernize and strengthen programs like Medicare and Medicaid, not dismantle them. This means addressing inefficiencies and coverage gaps while preserving their core promise. When critics point to problems in these systems, the answer isn't to abandon the mission, but to improve the execution. Third, as AI transforms the economy, we need new approaches to ensure its benefits are widely shared. This could include universal health care, education credits for lifelong learning, strengthened labor protections, and potentially even exploring concepts like universal basic income. Our safety nets must evolve to address 21st century challenges. Perhaps most importantly, we need to reclaim the narrative. Safety nets aren't about creating dependency. They're about creating opportunity. They're not charity. They're mutual insurance. They don't weaken us. They make us resilient. They represent the best of what we can be as a society. People who recognize our interconnection and refuse to prosper at the expense of others' suffering. History has repeatedly shown what happens when societies fail to protect their most vulnerable. The costs invariably exceed what it would have taken to prevent the suffering in the first place. The challenges ahead, from climate change to AI disruption to demographic shifts, will test our social fabric like never before. Without strong safety nets, these forces could tear us apart. With them, we have a fighting chance to build a future that's not just prosperous, but fair and humane. The next time you hear someone dismiss Medicare, Medicaid, or other social programs as unnecessary government handouts, remember, these aren't just budget line items. They're lifelines for millions of real people. They're expressions of who we are as a society. And they might just be what saves us from repeating history's darkest chapters. The question isn't whether we can afford strong safety nets. The question is whether we can afford to do without them. I believe the answer is clear. A society that abandons its vulnerable members isn't just cruel. It's creating the conditions for its own demise. Caring for one another isn't weakness. It's our greatest strength and our best hope for navigating the uncertain future that lies ahead. For the Human Meme Podcast, I'm AI David Bowles, wishing you a safe evening and a stronger tomorrow. Be a human meme.
Lost in the social static, feeds filled with noise and clatter. Divide and conquer tactics, leaving hearts in disarray and shatter. But there's a new transmission, a beacon on the airwaves calling, a revolution of transmission, a movement for us all. We're the human meme nation, a web of hearts entwined, sharing wisdom. conquered. Every fear loves the answer, meaning clear.